stand for, Officer Trent?
Nerdly Out Loud podcast, the official podcast of nerdly.co.uk, your favorite British home for news, reviews, and interviews, big budget to low budget to no budget. We try to cover it all. If you're watching on YouTube, please do subscribe and everything like that. Hit the bell at the side. I know a lot of YouTubers say smash that bell. I'm not saying smash that bell, but please do hit it, and it will tell you when we have new episodes coming out that we want to promote and promote people that are coming on. Speaking of which, a little while ago I reviewed a short movie called Officer Down, starring the wonderful Martin Delaney, Joseph Alton, and Ben Turner, directed by Simon Pierce. If you saw my review, I gushed over this one. It's an 18-minute short. It's absolutely fantastic. It's socially just on the money right now. So when I had the chance to speak to Martin Delaney, to come on the show, and basically, more than anything, chat with Jason Summerby, I could not let that go. How are you today, Martin Delaney?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Kev. It's I really appreciate it. And you're here in my living room, I guess. This is
I know, right?
It's ready for Christmas.
It's weird, like this. I mean, obviously everything that's going on. Well, let's start there. Actually, how are you keeping during these mad mental times, and how are things going? Because you've kind of released, or Upside Down was released a little bit before this, but it's kind of hitting festivals right now, and you can't really go out and do it.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty weird. Obviously, like for everyone, it's been a really strange year and difficult in different ways. And I think also the arts industry has taken its own particular hit, and certainly acting. I think one of the encouraging things is that content is definitely less in terms of TV and film, but I do think the industries are doing a great job of trying to make sure it's a safe environment, and that's really encouraging. Talking to director friends and writer friends and how it's going, but it's been a bizarre old year. It's been weird. We're lucky. Like my wife and I moved out to this part of, not far from where we were in sort of southeast London, Kent. So we're right in this new tier 4 magic, which is going. It's in, when we first got here, it's a bit of a change of scene for us. We're sort of in a country lane. So my wife grew up in Cambridge and then is an actor as well, was in London. And then so for us both to be out of a town environment, it was a bit daunting. And then as soon as all this stuff hit, we were like, oh, we have like the best place ever. We can go for one walk a day and there's no one around. So it's been a weird year, but it's been really, really beautiful in different ways too. I'm just hoping that we can claw things back and the next year can be a bit better. But yeah, we hit some festivals and film's doing okay. It's been really surprising.
It's doing better than okay.
Yeah, it's lovely because I think we, as you said, it's a genre festival, right? I mean, or film. It's a very, it's an action piece, action thriller piece, but actually, I think there's a bit more to it. I think that's what we were hoping for, and I think it shows in terms of where's picked it up. Aesthetica Film Festival in York had it, which is a beautiful festival. And then to someone like, it's a BAFTA qualifying festival as well. And then going to somewhere like Holly Shorts, which is a beautiful festival as well in California, is attached also to the Oscars, the Academy Awards. So to nick a festival like that and then be really interested in essentially what we thought was, we were putting together, a stunt film, an action piece. It's really wonderful to get that kind of recognition. And then somewhere like Waterford in Ireland, which is a beautiful festival just because of what it does for kind of new filmmakers. It has like a lot of new talent being shown there every year that haven't had a platform before. So yeah, it's been amazing, really.
We're going to be getting into Upside Down a little bit, but first of all, I've got you on the show. There is no way I'm not going to speak to you about your projects. You've had some absolute crackers over the years, starting way back when I was a young lad, I guess, watching Nickelodeon, and there's Renford Rejects, one of my all-time favorite shows as a kid. if you know, you know.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? You got
Sort
to
of,
play. You played Jason Summerby, the
yeah.
striker extraordinaire. Tell us a little bit about how you actually got sort of into the acting game, and more
Uh-huh.
importantly, how Renford came along.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, thank you for watching it. It's become like a mad cult classic. It's sort
Hasn't
of,
it?
yeah, I mean, there's weird fan clubs all over the place that watched it, and it was great fun to make, first and foremost. I mean, I loved it. But yeah, I mean, I was an actor. I didn't want to be an actor until I was in my teens. But I always had a really vivid imagination. I came from a really ordinary, lower middle class family, really. And my parents didn't really know anything about this industry at all. But my cousin had started acting when he was really quite young, and I was interested in it. And at school, they kind of nurtured me a bit, and they thought I had something. I was quite shy at school, um, but they sort of thought I had quite a sort of cheeky side, I guess, and that there was a bit of character there. So I sort of started weirdly. I actually did an open audition for a musical in London after doing two plays at school. I did a play and then I did a musical at school. I never really fancied singing and dancing at all. It wasn't my bag, but I was obsessed with these old musical films. I remember watching Ron Moody's Oliver, with
Nice.
Oliver Reed, and loving it. And so I auditioned for Oliver in the West End. I queued up with like 4,000 kids and got in. I just somehow I kept going back to auditions and got in the show. And in the meantime, I rang an agent. Like I was quite determined as a sort of teenager.
Nice.
And I rang a children's agency and they took me on. And uh, I knew that I was going to be in Oliver. Sam Mendes was directing it, who's obviously amazing. And Sam had said yes to me being in the show as one of the young ensemble cast members. And then I was sort of put into the second company of kids coming in. So I had the rehearsal period, which was quite long. When you put up a new show, they had normally you get like 4 weeks, but actually with a new show, you get like a few months.
Yeah.
So I had like 6 months before I was going into the show because they had this big rehearsal period, then the first turnaround of kids. And I joined this young person's agency. I auditioned for another musical over Christmas, which was Peter Pan. And I did it. So I landed that job. So I did two musicals. I did Peter Pan and then I went straight into Oliver. And the weird thing is that Peter Pan had Ron Moody, the Ron Moody from the old Oliver film, was playing Hook in our Peter Pan. So I got to
Nice.
work with him, and then I went on to Oliver with Jonathan Pryce and Sam directing and great people, and I loved being on stage. I loved the musical stuff. I picked up the dance stuff pretty well, even though I was untrained because I did a lot of martial arts when I was young, so it was a bit like kata, I guess. It was a bit like learning a form. And so I did the show a couple of times. I went back and then I sort of broke away into TV and film and started doing the odd bit. I've not really been back to musical theatre, but I've done stage a bunch of times. But yeah, I just one day get a call, so can you audition for this football show? And I'd done a couple of bits at the time. Actually, I'd done a couple of kids shows for ITV, just episodics, and I'd done an episode of like Pie in the Sky, which was an old sort of 90s
Nice.
classic TV on a Sunday with Richard Griffiths, brilliant show. Um, Playing a really public schoolboy, like in that, like really posh kid. And then Jason Summerby came along in Renford Rejects. And I remember going to a bunch of auditions, and yeah, our final audition was at Willesden Park, which is where we filmed all the football. We
That's so cool.
turned up and there was just two of all of us, two of each of us. It was like, oh, this is horrible. And
A
we had to,
five-a-side game.
yeah, exactly. So we had to sort of do a bit of football, and I think generally speaking, what people probably don't know about the show so much is that we had to be all right at football in order to look terrible and also have moments when we were then good. So football was actually a big part of our audition process and a big part of our rehearsal. It's quite unheard of nowadays, but we used to have like 3 to 4 weeks of rehearsal every season, and we would rehearse the hell out of the scripts as much as we could, and play a lot of football and get
Nice.
sort of fit. Yeah, so I loved it. I mean, I was just, getting paid to play football every summer. I come from a big footballing family. Like my brother was a pro footballer and my dad was a decent footballer, and so it was amazing to sort of, just kick about every summer. It was amazing.
So who's the best footballer out of yous?
Out of the guys, I would say, ironically, it was probably Roger Davis who played Vinny. For those who don't know this show, I mean, like, we should probably give a bit of background. Renford Rejects is a football show that was made in the 90s. It was the first time that Nickelodeon made a UK show.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all, in terms of comedy dramas. And it was a show about a terrible bunch of footballers at school. And so they couldn't make it into the school team, and they formed their own team called the Renford Rejects. Well, they were called the Renford Rovers or something. And then
the main team was the Rovers.
Yeah.
Was it the Razors?
The Razors. I think those guys changed the name or something like that of our entry. So we ended up going into the league being called the Renford Rejects. And so it was a bit of a bullying thing. And so the idea was that these guys were just mad. Like, in the whole remit for the show with these American producers was like, we want it to feel a bit like a cartoon with actors. It was quite a colourful show. Yeah. And it was quite silly in places. And acting very over the top as a result. Yeah, and I played Jason, who's the captain, and he was really working class and really fun, I think, but really annoying at times. He could be a real pain in the bum. We had a blast making it. It was great fun. There was something about it, like the idea that you would, and it's something quite on the pulse now, like the idea that you would, for a start, we had a girl in the team. That was the big unique thing at the time. Like the best player in the team was a girl. And she was great. And we were all like terrible at football. And the idea was that it's all right to sort of be who you are. Like that was the whole point of the show, right? Everyone was kind of nuts in the show and a heightened, character. And the whole theme was that it's okay. And that stuff really is the sort of important messaging that needs to be out there today, I think.
Absolutely.
Because, young people, don't get me wrong. Everyone took the mick out of the Rejects. I don't know what it was like for you guys, Kev, but I still get people shouting shit to me in the street about it,
It'll be affectionate, though.
Well, it's really interesting because it is. But there's also, I think because there's such big years of your life, being a teenager growing up and watching a show like that, you find a lot of people love it and are sort of embarrassed to love it because it's a show about a group of losers. And it's like... Yeah. And it's funny, I often get a bit of stick, from people, but they've watched every episode. Do you remember what your favourite episode was?
For me, it was the Don Bruno episode in the first series. Eddie McAvoy just doing the Elvis sort of gangster. I absolutely love that episode. It's one, but as much as I like Jason Somerby, and I think your character is great, I think Bruno is the best character in there. Yeah, I just love him. Brilliant. Absolutely love him.
It's that classic comedy thing, I think, which is a sort of rule in comedy, that you're sort of an insane person in a sane world. That's the sort of rule of comedy. So that's why you get like heightened performances and people doing stuff over the top, because what's funny is you not seeing the world as it is, not seeing reality. And Bruno's character really had that dialed up to 11.
What was your favourite episode of Rimford?
God, I mean, look, it
all
was,
of them.
Yeah, it was good fun. I mean, look, there's some that sort of do spring to mind sort of instantly just because of how fun they were to shoot. Like the in season 1, we did 4 years of the show, and in season 1 I had a really big episode because the first season was all about establishing the guys, really.
Yeah.
So we all had like 2 episodes each, and Jason, the whole idea about him was that he was supposed to be a bit of a bullshitter. So he was really covering for this. Look, there was stuff that the audience never found out. For example, like we had these character bios, and Jason was supposed to come from a broken home. He was supposed to have a single mum at home, and really struggling. So everything about his bravado and his confidence and cockiness was just covering the fact that he felt terrible about not having the same stuff as everyone else. And there was some stuff about that in the episodes about him being a bit poorer than the other guys.
Yeah,
Uh,
you get that in the first series when I think you go to,
yeah,
is it Wembley you go to, or no, not
that's what
Wembley.
we go to QPR.
That's it, QPR,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was one I was going to mention was so brilliant to
Great
film.
episode.
Yeah, we actually it was directed by a guy called Bob Altman, who's great director, American guy, friend of the producer and creator Stephen Baywell, and we just had a blast. Not only was he a great director, but to go and film at QPR, I was going to go on the pitch. I went on the pitch. I got to do like one-on-ones with Stan Bowles. Like it's just bizarre. Like when you talk about, for anyone who's not seen this show,
Yeah, that's mad.
like
It's
I was doing one-on-ones with Stan Bowles on QPR's pitch. Like what? Um, and he was great. Stan and I became good friends for a long time. Like he and my dad got on really well and met afterwards.
awesome.
And obviously, my dad grew up watching him and loving him as a footballer, and we became pretty good friends. Weirdly, really unique sort of friendship. Episodes with the '66 guys, with Gordon, Jeff Hurst
Unbelievable, man.
and Gordon Banks and Martin Peters. It was just like a dream to play football with these guys. To play football with them, not even film with them. We were playing football with these guys, and amazing. And then we had Zola and Keown, do an episode, at the time when they were big deals. Like Keown was still
He
captain
was
of Arsenal, I
massive.
think, at the time. I loved all that stuff, and actually, I really loved Jim Rosenthal and Bob Wilson, being part of it. Jim's son used to watch it. Tom, who's now a great comedian and great actor, Tom Rosenthal.
Yeah.
And so Jim would come up and go, I can't say no to the show anymore because my son loves it. Like it's too late. Like it's like, I can't not do it. And Bob Wilson as well. And they'd get together and have a blast. And we'd get them, the exec producers and directors would just put them in a room, and set up the studio, and they'd film little sections for like multiple episodes all at one time. So I guess it was quite straightforward work for them.
Was there any one person that you got to meet on the show that kind of, because obviously there was loads and loads
Yeah.
and loads of footballers on there, but was there anyone that you kind of stood back as a young one and thought, holy crap, like I'm meeting this guy?
Yeah, I mean it's weird, isn't it? I think like for me as a young actor, I really liked. So when we had we had Alexei Sale do 2
Yeah.
episodes. He did a tiny bit in one episode in one season, I think season 2, and then he came back in the 4th season when we were filming this mad cowboy episode in Sardinia. And Alexei was really good friends with the exec producer Stephen as well. And he's like, yeah, I'll come back and do an episode and play this kind of, comedy guy. I mean, Alexei's work is brilliant. Like I'd always, watched him as a young, viewer of this stuff and admired him. And actually, it was really amazing having like Tony Slattery in. We got some amazing older performers at the time whose work was really credible, and it was quite a clever remit for the show. Like they knew that Nickelodeon obviously had this show. They wanted to hook the parents. They wanted to make sure there were
Yeah.
people in there that the parents could watch it and get the jokes. But I guess in terms of footballers, I guess it was probably the '66 boys. I just couldn't believe they wanted to come and do it twice. They came back and did it again. Just lovely. George Cohen and all these guys, really. And you really reflect on that stuff, because we've lost Martin Peters and Gordon Banks in the last couple of years, like one each year, and so to reflect on that stuff and to think that we had an opportunity to hang out and play football was amazing, really
Yeah,
amazing.
but they had an opportunity to hang out with the rejects as well. Well, like you said before, it seems to, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, it seems to have really picked up like this amazing little community that's going on, and this cult following that I just love it. It's that
Yeah,
and Rejects and Dream Team as well. It
yeah.
seems
Well,
to
they were
have,
sort of. I think because they were sort of out around the same time.
yeah,
At the time my girlfriend worked on Dream Team, in the production team, and actually Roger Davis, who's a lovely actor who played Vinny,
yeah,
went on to Dream Team. There was a lot of similar circles we were all in. You know, Phil Barantini, who was in Dream Team, then worked with Matt Leach, who was Stuart. They both did Band of Brothers together. You know, so that we would, you know, and Phil and I hung out a fair bit. You know, we were all seeing the same people. You know, and you had this one that was sort of trying to be like a soap that was kind of real, and then you had this sort of stupid one. And it was good actually because, you know, there aren't many good football shows or films over the years. And the fact that both those were going at roughly the same time and people loved them, you know, maybe it must be that purple strip. It must be lucky.
It is the purple strip. It
The
definitely
purple
is.
strip is just lucky.
It's safe to say that. I mean, I could sit here and talk about rejects for you know, hours and hours and hours.
Sorry if you don't know the show and you've been
that's the thing. People are like, I tuned in to hear about this short movie Officer Down. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But there's no way I was going to have you on and not talk about that for a quick minute. But aside from rejects, you've been in many shows, like you said before, TV shows. Some episodic stuff, some long running stuff for you. 2 Pints of Lager, Family Affairs, Shortland Street. How did you end up in Shortland Street? Was that not like a New Zealand program?
Yeah, Shorty Street is like I think we had it here for a while. It's the equivalent of, it's their longest running primetime drama. So it's a bit like having Coronation Street, but it's a hospital drama. So it's a bit like Casualty. So it's like, I think we showed it in the daytime at some point.
I remember seeing it on, but I was kind of like, when I saw your name on the credit, like on the IMDb, I was like, was that not like, that was Australian or something?
Yeah, New Zealand. Yeah, I lived out there for about 8 months.
Nice.
I did, like, not long after I did Rejects. You know, Rejects we did for like 4 years. We got nominated for a BAFTA, I think, in the first year, which was pretty cool, you know, for a show like that. But I went off and did a soap afterwards, Family Affairs, that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It was a small soap on like Channel 5 at the time. It was one of their only TV dramas that was homegrown. And what it was is I was leaving the show. I'd come to the time I want to do just one more contract. And generally, our contracts were like 6 months to a year. Once they sort of like you and get you up and running, they want you to sort of sign a year every time.
Yeah.
I'd been doing the show for about 3 years, I think. I'd been up for a bunch of soap awards, which was really lovely, and all this kind of stuff. But I realised that I was on a bit of a ladder that, at the time, I wanted to have a bit of a break, and I wanted to go back to doing, you know, 3 months on a project, you know, and then doing another project, and so I decided to leave this show, Family Affairs, and the producer agreed for me to have a sort of shorter contract on the way out. And what was happening is, a good friend of mine, Lawrence Wilson, who's a really lovely director, he's currently working on shows like EastEnders and stuff, does a bit of that kind of soap work. Brilliant director. He is a British guy, was based in New Zealand a lot of his life, and he had really strong links with Shortland Street from working on the show. And he directed with, you know, my big episodes in Family Affairs for quite a long time. We got on really well. And he said, look, he was actually looking for I was playing a Scotsman in Shortland Street, and they were looking for a Scottish actor, and he was told to keep an eye out because they couldn't find anyone they really liked in Auckland, and they were willing to take someone from Scotland or from the UK and bring them. And a Scottish actor in the show, Brian, in Family Affairs, was talking to Lawrence one day, and he said, why don't you just ask Marty? Like, Marty can do it. Like, he could play it. And Lawrence and I were good friends anyway. And he was like, oh, yeah, of course. And so he then approached me and said, look, these guys want this. Do you think you could do it? I was like, yeah. So he sort of vouched for me. And I thought they would put me on tape or whatever, you know, and say, yeah, all right, let's look at his accent and blah, 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 blah. And they were like, no, all right, fly him out. So they just sort of sorted out the contract. And I went out, for a bunch of months and lived in Auckland. And when I got there was an agent called Robert Bruce, the most Scottish name you could have, you know. And
Definitely.
He was like good friends with, the producers on the show. And they said, okay, so go and see Robert and do your accent for Robert, and Robert will decide. And actually, if you can't do it or whatever, we'll make him like a Londoner. It's okay. And they wanted, because I was going in to play a kind of this chef, and they wanted a kind of Jamie Oliver type. They wanted that kind of bubbly, kind of upbeat guy, but a Scotsman. And so I went to see Robert, and he's a great agent out there in Auckland. He's passed away sadly now, and he was like, you know what, do what you're doing. He went, I think that'd be great. You know, it's completely passable. It's brilliant. And he signed me up. Like, so he was my rep in New Zealand while I was out there. So yeah, it was great fun. I went out there for a while and enjoyed it and worked with some great people and I've made some friends out there that I still have today, you know. And Anna Hutchinson, who's a great actress, she's brilliant. She does a lot of film and a lot of television. She was in Spartacus and stuff with a good friend of mine. We became good friends on that show. You know, she played my partner on the show, and yeah, nice. It was great memories.
I'm super glad you said passable on the Scottish accent there. And I think you might know where I'm going to go with this.
Not here, surely.
But I remember a movie called Beowulf, in which you were acting alongside Mr. Gerard Butler, who, of course, at the time was up and coming, but now is super mega. And your Scottish accent in that is a little bit ropey, to be honest.
Oh, really? He was quite good about it. No, I mean, it was a weird one. It was like, you know, I think in there we were, you know, the whole idea was that we were playing these kind of it's a Viking film, Beowulf and Grendel. And Jerry was obviously Scottish from Glasgow. Tony Curran was his best buddy was from Scotland. I was actually cast as a Southerner.
All right.
And when we got out there, because a lot of our guys were all Scottish, they were like, no, we're going to move everyone's accent and create this hybrid accent. Voice coach, understandably, which is accurate, they were saying Old Norse is this sound of like Northern England stroke sort of creeping up. So we were like, but if we do an accent that isn't anything, that's going to sound pretty weird. And but yeah, I mean, look, I did something.
I'm not saying it was bad. It was just, you know, you've got Gerard Butler there, who's about as Scottish as it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that was how did you said before about you starting off in the musical sort of theatre and then going into TV shows. Was there always an intention for you to jump into movies?
I mean, I think, you know, like I think actors tend to sort of, you know, move into like the area they're passionate about. I mean, I think, you know, I grew up watching soap, but I wasn't a huge fan of soap. I have a lot of respect and time for the people involved in making soap, but I did as a young adult and as a sort of teenager coming into adulthood, I wasn't watching it. I wasn't consuming it in the same way. But yeah, I was always quite keen on trying to sort of jump across and do a bit more film. And you know, I'd done a film in Glasgow when I was like 16, just, you know, before I did Rejects. I'd done a film, a sort of action kids film, you know, called Gadget Man.
Oh, yeah.
Alan Corduna and Marina Sirtis. And so from Star Trek. And I was playing like the lead kid in that. And so I spent some time in Glasgow and loved it. And knew that I wanted to go back and do a bit more film. So when the opportunity came up after I'd done Rejects and then soap for a while and then New Zealand, there was a few more opportunities to do a bit more film and that was lovely. And I think I was lucky being in something as small as Family Affairs. I think if I'd have been in like EastEnders or Corrie or something, you wouldn't have been able to get across and do a bit more film. Lucky that I'd go and do sort of smaller roles in film and stuff, and it was easier to be, you know, in Beowulf, like for example, as you're talking about there, I look like a different, you know, I'm covered in hair and I look like a different dude. So it's like, oh yeah, who's that? But I think being in a soap that was quite small meant that it was passable when you crop up in stuff, and it's been the same, you know, doing things like Zero Dark and now you see 2 and Catch 22 and stuff. People just accept it now.
Jump onto that. You've already throughout your career, you've already been working with some fantastic names already, the likes of Sam Mendes and everything. But you kind of followed up Beowulf with a little bit more TV stuff through the years. But you had some parts in Clint Eastwood's Flags of Our Fathers, which is a movie that I absolutely loved. I adored that film when it came out. Catherine Bigelow, the Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
You know, another fantastic movie with a phenomenal cast, sharing scenes with Jesse Eisenberg. Now You See Me Too, who, I mean, Jesse Eisenberg's just, for me, he's one of those actors, I don't care what anybody says, I love him. Like,
he's brilliant. Yeah. And a really good guy, you know.
He seems to be a little bit Marmite with a lot of people, but generally, I
Yeah.
just love everything he's in. I think he's
I
great.
I loved the way he worked as well. You know, with that stuff we were doing in Now You See Me Too was like it was only like two sort of small scenes or one sort of big scene set in two parts, and it's in one of the big heists they do
Yeah,
quite early on in the second film, and I was just playing like a sort of security tech guy. This guy, Bo Walsh, who's like this guy that he comes in and does a con on, right? Does one of these
mhm,
magic tricks on, and I remember when I auditioned, you know, the script was there and it was I had quite a long chunk of dialogue like in the movie, but we were sort of talking over each other.
mhm.
And so when I got the job, John M. Chu, who's a great director, um, we did Crazy Rich Asians and In
Yeah,
the Heights is coming up. And, you know, John was like, yeah, we're going to keep that, we're going to have that energy. And, you know, so Jesse was just brilliant at us really listening to each other because we sort of ad-libbed a chunk of that stuff too.
yeah.
So, you know, you had the sort of, you know, Ed Solomon's wonderful script and he's a brilliant writer. But John was like, let's lift it. And so whatever gets said, you can try and work around that. And Jesse was just great at that. We were listening to each other. So it meant that if one of us changed a bit of a line or did this, you know, he'd just respond perfectly and really in the moment. And it's, yeah, it's lovely. It's good fun to do.
It's a great little scene that you have, and it is kind of like one of those moments that when the first time I watched it, like instantly I saw you and I'm like, it's Jason Zombie. it's
Jason's in there doing an American accent.
it's just Jason in there, kicking it with Jesse Eisenberg. Awesome.
But I mean, I get that like any time they show it on television, I get a tweet or something like, or any time that Zero Dark 30's on, they're like, what the fuck is Jason Summerby doing in there? Like, what? How is he capturing Bin Laden? Like, what's going on?
Because I
Um,
mean, logically, that would be the next step for that character. So,
exactly. He's got the gift of the gab.
is
Yeah.
there when you've been on these sets with the likes of Clint Eastwood, the likes of Jesse Eisenberg, the likes of Catherine Bigelow, and everybody that was in that film? I mean, Christ, talk about James Gandolfini for God's sakes! And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was there any bit of advice or anything that coming up as a young actor somebody's given you that you've really latched onto?
Um, well, I think what's been really amazing. Look, I do feel really lucky and privileged to have worked with some of the amazing people you just
Yeah.
mentioned. You know, Catherine is a dream, Catherine
Mm.
Bigelow, and I love her films. Eastwood is amazing. I've worked with year before last. I worked with George Clooney and Ellen Kuras on Catch 22. It's an amazing book. It was an amazing project to be part of. So I've done a few of these kind of American big things with these lovely people who you admire and you admire their work. The thing that always stands out to me about these people at the top of their game is that they're lovely. I notice when you go on these sets with people who are at the top of their game is they trust you, which I think is incredible. But you know we're professionals, but you still expect to go on there and be a bit like treated with kid gloves, I guess.
Yeah.
But Eastwood, you know, I never forget work. I did Flags of Our Fathers the year after I made that Beowulf and Grendel film,
Yeah.
and I shot it in Iceland as well, where I filmed Beowulf and Grendel. And I mean, it was a dream of a set. You know, we had a lot of trouble filming that Viking film, but the year later, when we were out there playing soldiers, in Japanese beaches, I was like, this is like, it was just a dream of a set. He's a really nice guy. He's a very calm director, and he really trusts you. And I remember talking to Ryan Philippe about the scene. One of the scenes we had. One of the scenes is cut out, but the scene that I had when I'm taking him into the cave, which is a tiny bit in the film,
Yeah.
but I remember chatting to him. We had a drink that night, and he was like, it's just that it can be quite daunting because as an actor, you need a bit of reassurance, and you think that's what you want from the director. But actually, working with these people, they're so trusting and so lovely. I just feel really grateful. I just want any young actors out there that really want to be, doing amazing work and working with great people. And look, let's face it, there's going to be loads that are surpassing anything I'm doing. I just want you to feel confident and trust that these people that are, that you're watching their work and you admire, they tend to be good people. It tends to be the people kind of halfway up the ladder who are a bit of a dick Catch-22 with
Yeah.
what Clooney set was brilliant. Like, he's brilliant. He's
Well,
great
that
fun.
was the next thing, because I've only seen the first two episodes of
Uh,
Catch 22. I need to get back to it and I need to finish it off. But I mean, that is another cast of people that, I mean, I'm in love with Kyle Chandler. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
everything he
great.
does, he's just perfect.
And he was in Zero Dark as well. Actually, I didn't get to
He
meet
was,
him on Zero
yeah.
Dark, but we were working, in the same, hanging out in when we were in Sardinia for that.
I mean, if you ever speak to the man again, just tell him that Friday Night Lights makes me cry every
Yeah,
single episode.
it's
And I'm not
great.
ashamed to admit that.
Yeah,
But yeah, Catch 22. So this is directed, produced, and everything by George Clooney, who I think is a
yeah.
magnificent director. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is
Oh
one of
yeah,
my favorite movies of all time. I just love it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so what was it like on that set with all these fantastic people, and you're doing a war show, but it's kind of a bit of a comedy with serious undertones, and what was it like?
It was brilliant. I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, look, for a start, I remember I remember there's two old
Mm,
versions, I think. I remember watching one of them growing up and loving it, and also, watching MASH and loving MASH. And so it's the same flavor, the absurdity of war.
it's got a very MASH feel to it, yeah.
Yeah. And look, it was, for me, it was just an audition with, that I was taping in my front room with my wife, helping me out. I didn't think much of it. I had a great scene to prepare. It was a wonderful casting director, Amy Hubbard, who's a brilliant casting director, very affectionate, kind casting director who is passionate about actors,
Mhm.
and really for actors. And I remember doing a tape for this job, and not really thinking much of it, knowing that it was a George Clooney show,
Yeah.
and then just sort of putting it to the back of my mind. So I was really stunned when I heard he really likes you, and there's a chance that you're going to be in it. So I was playing Major's assistant, in that, Sergeant Towser, which is a great part in the book. I didn't get a load. I mean, I'm in 3 episodes, I think, of a 6-part series, and they're kind of small scenes, really. There's not like a load to do, but it was it's a great. I was aware of the part in the book and what a kind of idiot he is. He's that kind of, um, I guess slightly power hungry, or he gets a bit power crazed in the book a little bit later. But in our stuff, he's sort of serves as this guy to be a pain in the backside for Chris Abbott's character, Yossarian, and sort of stop him from getting in and seeing Major, played by wonderful actor Lewis Pullman. So yeah, I mean, look, Grant Heslov, who's George Clooney's business partner as well, and producer stuff, both great, and Grant's a great actor as well, lovely actor. But it was Ellen Kuras as well that I was really like blown away. She was directing some episodes, and I was like, oh man, like when I got the job, I was like, I can't believe the people I'm going to work with on this.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like Ellen was has been a great director of photography for years, and made movies like Blow and
Mhm.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I just loved her work. I was already like those films would be very different films without her aesthetic,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I can't believe I'm going to get a chance to work with her, and she's directing now, and George as well, just an absolute dream. He's just the most charming, lovely guy. But my first day was the first day of the whole shoot, and I was the first scene of
Oh God.
the whole shoot. It was just Lewis Pullman and I doing the scene where I go in, and he's newly been made the major,
Mm.
and he's like, no one can come in.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like very Blackadder, like I don't want to do the job, I don't want to have any responsibility, so just don't
Yeah.
send anyone in to see me. And I'm the kind of poor innocent soldier who's got to listen to this bullshit about like, so when do I let people come and see you because that's your job? Just never. Only when I'm out. Okay, so when you're out, they can come in, and it's great writing from Luke Davies and David Michaud, who are brilliant writers. But that whole thing of the absurdity of war and
Yeah.
orders, the fact that everything is a loophole, that you can't do something because it's said in writing, and the whole piece is about this, trying to. It's like that Blackadder Goes Forth episode when he's trying to explain how he's mad. You
Yeah.
can't say you're mad, so Yossarian can't get himself out of the war because if you have the awareness to say you're mad, you can't be mad. That was the first thing we did. of the whole thing. And I remember Lewis and we'd already sort of hung out a tiny bit, and it was quite a tough scene. Like, it's quite a
Yeah.
tough scene to make sense of because it's
I
so
imagine,
fast.
yeah.
And we got on set and we ran through it, and he was really lovely, and he's a great actor, by the way, Lewis Pullman, and Bill Pullman's son. And he was just like, "Oh, now it makes sense. Now you're here. Like, we can make it work. It makes sense now." And I was playing him as, playing Towser as a sort of New Yorker, daunting as hell. That first, to kick off the whole shoot.
Yeah.
And I remember George said to us afterwards, he was like, "We're sending that stuff to Paramount later." So it was like, to basically prove to them, that it's a good show to make, that it's great, that we're everything's going well. And also, I think because the scene really sums up the Catch-22,
Yeah.
that this whole story is based on. So I was like, "Oh, no pressure. Just, Lewis and I going up there trying to sort it all out." You've got production people running around you trying to sort out all sorts of stuff at the same time.
If the scene doesn't work, the show doesn't work.
Yeah. I don't think they'd have pulled it if I'd have been that bad. They'd have just pulled me. They'd have been like, "Let's get him out of it."
No, they wouldn't have.
But it was great. I mean, I loved it. I was out in Sardinia filming. Actually, I've done a bunch of projects out there. Weirdly, it's become a really topical place to film, and just beautiful. Like, we went out a bunch of times, and my wife ended up coming out on one of the last times we popped out there, and it was lovely. Yeah, really good fun.
But you've had a cracking career so far. You said at the start it's been very varied and everything, but you've worked with some phenomenal people. No matter how big or how small the role is, you've worked with just some of the best in the business, and it's amazing for someone like me who just loves movies and who loved a TV show back in the day that you were in, to see where you've gone to and the sort of projects you've been involved in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about Officer Down.
Yeah, of course.
Because this short movie, 18-minute short, absolutely fantastic. It's very tense. I believe my Tense as Hell made the trailer, which was nice.
Did, yeah.
It's always nice to see my name in a trailer.
That's it, yeah.
I'll never be in the movie, so I might as well get in as a quote.
That's brilliant. That was good.
But it's a very socially aware short movie, as I mentioned earlier. Joseph Alton, Ben Turner, yourself. How did you end up in this short, and what attracted you to the role?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say thank you for being so lovely about the sort of work I've done and effusive about it. I think I've been really lucky, to be honest, over the years. I mean, and what ended up happening with Officer Down was that Simon and I, as the director, we'd worked together on a very small feature that he'd done a few years back. It was a Simon R. Green piece. Simon R. Green is a writer who's got these sort of a series of books called the Ghost Finder series, and they're sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of action horrors, sort of about a group of ghost hunters. And so Simon Pearce was directing a spin-off feature around this world, and I was playing the lead in it. And we got to make that together. And I just remember thinking Simon was so talented as a director. He's a young man and he's just brilliant. He comes from really good knowledge in his family. Like, his dad is an amazing camera operator, has worked on loads of action films, brilliant stuff. Roger. And so Roger and Simon were working together on this feature. I got to work with the two of them, and I just thought he was so good as a director, so skillful. And we become good friends. And so I'd made a comedy feature film called Amar, Akbar and Tony, like a British Asian comedy. It was on Netflix and stuff for a while, and Cineworld had it for a while. But Simon watched that and he was like, I think, because in the film we made together, Judas Ghost, I was playing this quite high status, very arrogant leader of this team, quite cocky like Jason Summerby, but in a very different way. He was quite middle class and quite suave, and the journey of the film is that he gets broken down by the stuff that happens, and by the end of it, you kind of you like him a bit more. He's not so much of a prick, but because he's trying to get through this stuff. But when I did Amar Akbar and Tony, Simon saw it and said, I really like this sort of low status guy. It was a bit more like RENFORD Rejects. I was playing that kind of the kind of comedy idiot of the film, and the clown, and Simon was like, I want to not maybe do something in a comedy way, but I really want to do something with this kind of everyman idea, with you playing this kind of low status thing. We should try and work on something. And look, Simon and I have been talking about projects for years that we could try and do together again. And I know that Simon wants to direct more action as well. He's a great action director. And he was getting to the point where he realised he hadn't really been doing a lot of that. It's really what he should be doing. He's a brilliant filmmaker, and action is really what he could do very, very well. Yeah. So he was like, well, I'm going to make this piece. I think I'd like to have you, So we were talking about it for quite a while, about developing the right idea. And then Officer Down was an idea that Simon had, I guess sort of referencing something like The Raid and sort of referencing some, but we wanted it to have this real, not just be an out-and-out action film like The Raid.
Yeah.
We needed to have like a British feel about it and have the brains of a British project behind it. So Simon then went away and sort of thought about what we could create. And I know that he did a rough version at first with a writing partner, and he and I looked over it and talked about it. And then he went and signed, got Tommy Draper to come and work with him as well. And they worked on it together and kind of came up with something a bit more socially relevant.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a great job. So then we thought it'd be a good thing to go and tackle. So the idea that, Alex Trent, this policeman in Officer Down is an everyman. He's not quite John McClane in Die Hard, but because he's not as edgy as that, I would say. But he's he's quite an innocent, simple riot cop, And it's like, you could at the beginning of that piece when you see him in the riot van going out, it could be his first day at work. It's that feel. You can't quite tell what's going on for him, but he's a young man who's just married, and he's thrown into this kind of riot, and to try and get this guy, and the film goes straight in, and he's caught behind enemy lines, and it's his experience of trying to get out and get the guy in charge as well. What did you think of it? Tell me what
I loved it. I mean, Christ, if you've read my review, you pretty much know what I think of it. But I liked what you said about The Raid as well, because there is a little bit of a sense of the Raid stylings in there, especially with the opening scene with you in the riot van. It's very kind of they kind of do that with Eco at the start of The Raid as well, when he's heading to the building. There is a sense of that, but for me personally, I love a movie that does punchy, kicky action. I love stunts. I love all of that stuff. But this is an 18-minute short that throws in like a massive amount of world building that kind of could go unnoticed if you just wanted to watch the action. It could go unnoticed, but it's right there in front of you. I kind of wanted to know, like, you don't base it around any particular riot, as far as I can tell. It's just sort of like there's riots going on, there's undertones happening, but if you live in this country, I think we kind of know what we're getting at here. How important was it for you guys as actors and as a crew to deal with these underlying issues, like in an intelligent way, like a sort of
Well, absolutely. Look, I don't think there's any that I'm surprising anyone by saying that the country is very split at the moment. So it's like, we wanted to sort of, I guess we want to tap into some of that zeitgeist. But look, actually, we also tackled this picture before everything happened this year. Yeah. So it's, I think it was really hooking into a feeling that was going on in society. And also, there's been a lot of talk around, police, and especially in America, and what they stand for and how they operate. And look, it's here too. I mean, looking at Steve McQueen's Small Axe films recently, God, they're brilliant. They're just brilliant. And seeing that kind of, what does it mean to be doing a job as a soldier? What does it mean to be a soldier or a policeman, where there's an element of it that's mindless, because at some point you have to. The job is to sort of take an element of your own judgment away and do this task, which is fulfill this task, capture this person or make this arrest. But of course, you're relying on every individual to still have that human side of them. And gosh, I don't, there's lots of people working so hard in these jobs, doing these jobs. Friends of my, one of my dad's best friends was a policeman who was murdered off duty. And, it was like, I understand the real tough stuff of this task and this role, where Ben Turner's character, Elijah, is talking about how he's disenfranchised and the problems that he's faced. And he's hinting at the racism that he's faced, as well as the social problems that he's faced. And you completely understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's a man that's tipped over the edge, but you completely understand where he feels angry, to put it, bluntly, I think.
Oh,
and
definitely.
So it's wrapped up in all that complexity. And I think that's what's really successful about the piece.
Definitely. It's one of the reasons that I genuinely, as soon as I finished, it was probably the quickest I've written a review, because as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh man, I want so many people to see this. Like, it's just so on the money right now. And take away the fact that you're in it as well, because that was the big bonus for me. Jason Somerby's kicking ass, but I just wanted people to hear about it. And one question I do want to ask, and I don't really want to get into spoiler territory or anything, because I do want people to watch this. Because I know what my reaction was in that last scene, but when you read it on the page the first time and like reading the script, what was your reaction?
Yes, I mean, I guess like a lot of action pieces, just for your audience, I guess there's some moments in it that feel a little bit predictable and a little bit kind of on trope, you could say, for like action. But I think what's great about this is that there is a lot of subversion as well. That there are moments that really go, oh wow, and there's certainly something in the last scene that you're talking about there that's quite interesting. And for me, I was like, yeah, this is important, because actually this says a lot about what's going on at the moment. It says a lot about what's going on at the moment. Now, that's all I really want to say about it, because I think,
yeah, no, definitely,
I think people can watch it and see for themselves about that. But I think that last scene really is really on the pulse. Look, all good art, like, is supposed to hold a mirror up to society, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. And I think the fact that we managed to make an action thriller piece, but still hold a mirror up to society and make people reflect on what's going on in the world, I think is a real credit to Simon and Emily producing it, who did a great job. And Phil, Mayhew, wonderful DP. I mean, God, how lucky were we with a DP?
God, yeah, man. There was like Casino Royale and GoldenEye, and
yeah.
I'm sitting there like, GoldenEye's like the best James Bond ever, and this guy done it.
Yeah, I'm like, I was like, this is what it must feel like to be James Bond for a moment.
Exactly.
I was a much lower status James Bond. I wasn't quite as cool as James Bond. But I mean, it's one of the things that's really attractive about doing the job, right? It was like Alex Trent is a kind of underdog in a piece. He's a soft. He doesn't know his own strength until he's in this environment. And I think that was what was really lovely for me in doing the role. And putting some of my martial arts background to some good use finally, which is really good.
Nice little segue there, because basically you have all these political things, you have all these social undertones, which I absolutely love about the movie, and I think they're fantastic, and that's what kind of elevates it. But then you also have some punchy, kicky action, and there is some amazing choreography in this film.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that you have a little bit of a martial arts background. How much of this are you doing? Are you doing all of it, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think Neil Chapelhow, who did the action choreography, designed it. Look, first of all, what was amazing is that all this stuff is a collaborative process, and it was really beautiful to work with a bunch of guys who were really open and really on it. And we went through a series of rehearsals where we'd meet up prior to before shooting, and it'd be Neil, Simon, and I really working out every element of that fight, and knowing that in the script it's something that's like 4 lines long, 3 lines long. Alex fights for his life, you know,
Yeah.
you know. So, and then us creating this, what felt quite brutal. Yeah, but I think I was quite injured going into it. Like I'd done my shoulder in some of the work building up to it, and there was a point where it was looking like I was really in a bad way. So there were a couple of like little moments that were a bit too much for me to chuck myself down a stairwell or something. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I grew up doing Shotokan karate for years, and then a bit of MMA. So I came from that background.
Yeah.
And I've not really, I've done a few physical roles, but I've not really used it to that extent. Look, Alex is supposed to be, he's not a martial artist. It's not like doing a Scott
Yeah.
Adkins film. You know, he's supposed to be like an everyman. And so we were trying to work out, like, actually, Martin, you can't look too good in that bit. You know, it's like, you know, we're trying to find out the really lovely moves, but also moves that made him look like he was out of his depth.
Yeah.
And so it was great trying to work on all that stuff and find that in the role. But I just, you know, I've done a few bits over the years, Robin Hood and stuff, where I've got lovely sword fights, and Beowulf and Grendel, where there's a bit of action and stuff, and where I get to put a bit of my experience to good use. But this was nice, you know, to have like there's a fight in there that lasts a couple of minutes of
Yeah.
intense kind of, you know, action. I was bruised for real. It's like, oh, coming home to my wife, like my arm was just covered in bruises. I was like, yeah,
That's when you know you've had a good day on set.
that's it. Exactly that. And I think also it's a real, you know, like just to touch on, like I was talking about Simon when I first worked with him and how skillful he is. And I think this is a real testament to him and the relationship he's got with Neil as well. There was a day on our fourth day, we left some of the action stuff to the last bit. So we got through all the drama and getting to a point where the light was being lost. We were running out of light in the middle of Lewisham filming this stuff. And we still had a section of the fight to do that was quite long. So the three of us then quickly just talked about where can we cut moves out, where can we lose sections, and where can we bridge to the next bit. So there were plans really to do about another 20 seconds of fighting, I think, that we had in there, you know, on screen time, which obviously takes a fair chunk of time to film.
Yeah.
So we just were like, well, let's lose that move and let's lose that bit. Let's move him to here this way. And that's where Simon's really skillful, where some directors would lose their shit and panic. And where Neil and Simon have such a good relationship that the three of us could then go, what can we chuck out? And what can we move on with? So, and I think it works really well. The way that whole fight still ends up the way we want it to end up. It just gets there maybe a few moves quicker.
The bits that really stand out for me during that fight, again, I don't really want to do any spoilers, but the camera move when you pull the guy over on top of you is just gorgeous. Like the way it just sort of, and then obviously you getting booted into the massive pillar. I was just sitting there, I was like, this is incredible. And then 10 minutes later, I'm sitting there thinking, we are a shit country.
Exactly. We were so lucky with the guys that we worked. Like Neil had some great people like Joe Golby and stuff came and helped do the building of the scenes, and then obviously Miguel and Adi on the day were great stunt guys. You know, so we were just really lucky that, you know, like you say, low budget, short, but actually the team we had, the actors we had. Joe Alton's a great actor. Ben Turner's a great actor. Like both those boys, I really admire their work. The fact that we could get us all together, get Phil together, get these great stunt teams and Simon and Emily, like to create something really wonderful, you know, was pretty unique. It was pretty cool.
It's doing fantastic, as we've said a little bit earlier. I think it was it last weekend it went to the festival down in Romford.
Yeah, Fights in Spirit, which is a nice action festival. Yeah, we won the audience award there, which was really good. We were up for a bunch of awards there, and we were really like, oh, we might nick a couple here. But I think the audience award's always wonderful because people are sitting there watching all the content, because it was a physical festival. It was one of the few that have gone physical, you know. And people watched all the content for hours and then voted for us. So that's really lovely, you know, when you're especially with an action festival like that, where, you know, because Officer Down isn't an out and out action film, you know, and the fact that these people were like, yeah, that's really lovely. We were chuffed with that.
I feel like that's why people are taken to Officer Down, though, because it is an action piece, but there's some real talk in there. So I think that's
Yeah.
why people are really enjoying it. When you guys were making this, I know you had a fantastic team, and you were thinking that it's a unique experience and everything. But did you think that you had something that was going to hit as well as it is, or as resonate with people as well as it is? Was there a sense of that?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think, look, I think we played with the script a little bit, you know, and try to work out what was the right thing to have. Where was it? You know, what is its political sense? Because it could be quite concerning as a political message. You know, making a movie about this, about, you know, a white copper doing his job at the moment. You know, but it's and Ben Turner actually made some, as I was saying to you earlier, made some beautiful, you know, tweaks to the script, which I think just enabled Elijah to feel a bit more ambiguous and a bit more. There was empathy for that character, beautifully done, and beautifully done by, you know, in his performance. But I think I think we thought we might, you know what festivals are like. We thought we'd be at a few genre festivals because it was a genre piece.
Yeah.
But actually to be at Aesthetica Film Festival in York, which is a wonderful festival, BAFTA qualifying, and then to be at Holly Shorts in California and LA, you know, who's Oscar qualifying. We were sort of really pleasantly surprised that these mainstream festivals of beautiful work wanted us to be part of that roster and be part of that. And, you know, because we were expecting, I guess we were ready for the hit of just the genre festivals wanting to take us. It's been a lovely journey so far, and it's early on. You know, we've only just started getting it out there, and so it's I would say so far it's exceeded what I thought, because I thought we were going to get pigeonholed into the certain festivals.
You'll have sent a screening link over to George as well, so he'll be loving it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing The Midnight Sky that he's got coming out.
Yeah, damn, yeah.
And he's just a great filmmaker. He really is a great filmmaker, and a good man. He's a really, really nice man. And when my wife came out to Sardinia, she came onto the set with me on one of my final day actually, and she was just, you know, sitting in Video Village with Amal and the kids, you know, just hanging out. And he's just, you know, he arrived on set, and when I was there to do that stuff, and he was just so kind to my wife Emerald. Like, I was introducing them, and I thought, you know, he was going to be like, right, great to meet you. I've got to get on and, you know, get going now. And he just gave her so much time and just hung out with us for a while and chatted. But they're really special people. They're really lovely people. You know, his partner is a really brilliant human rights lawyer. Of course, you know, he cares about the world, you know, and it's really clear. And I just think he's, you know, working on that show was a real high point for me. I thought it was a real pleasure. So yeah, good people, man.
I wrote in my in my review that the only problem I had with Officer Down is the fact that it's only 18 minutes. I would like a feature out of this, but I've watched it a couple of times since, and to be perfectly honest, I think it's great the way it is. I like the fact that it's a contained little story. I'm not entirely sure where you might go if you were to make a feature from it, but if Simon was to come to you and say, look, we're doing a feature, would you jump into it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it's very difficult to know, isn't it? Because I would love to do to expand that world and obviously do a bit more action. And I love doing it, and I really enjoy doing it. It feels relatively natural for me, and it's not something that I've done in my career before in that way, because I'm sort of known for sort of British comedy or doing or cropping up playing in American stuff, like when they shoot it in Europe. So like. I'd love to. I'd work with Simon in a heartbeat. He's a great filmmaker. He's a really good guy. So I think if the right thing comes up, and if we can really find the right narrative for a feature version, because I agree with you. I think it's quite self-contained and it works. Of course, you want more when you get to the end of that piece, and that's the beauty of it. But actually, I think short form, if it works as short form, it works. It's done. Yeah. And so it's a weird one. But I'd love to explore a bit more of that world with him and do sort of an action genre piece with him.
Yeah, because there is sort of a world sort of buildy feeling to it. So, I mean, you could easily do like another story as part of it elsewhere. I mean,
there's something really lovely about especially if the casting is me doing it, of having like a kind of everyman chap, like a guy who sort of feels like kind of slightly low status, that kind of, not to compare it, but that Lord of the Rings journey of, a person who doesn't think they can make a difference, making a difference. And then what happens with that? Are they making a difference in the right way? I think then I think that's an important topic to explore, and maybe there is a feature in that. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Sort of
Let's talk of it. Let's talk.
Sort of a council estate John McClane. I like it.
That's it. Yeah. that feels right for Jason Somerby, doesn't it?
So how do you move on from there? Right?
Exactly.
So, Eddie, what would be your elevator pitch to get people to watch Upside Down?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. I'm not that good at that stuff.
Just say it's good,
which is why I'm not doing my elevator pitches very often. No, I mean, look, I think it's an action thriller. It's homegrown. It feels authentically British, and it will make you think. Certainly about what's going on in the world right now. And that's what I'd say.
And on that, we are in some mental times. There's a lot of weird things going on in the world. But when things do start getting back to normal, hopefully next year, what else are you working on? Obviously, you've just teased it an Upside Down feature there.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about what we can do and where to go with it, and whether to go with it. So maybe, I mean, it's a really tough time for actors. I think it's a bizarre time. A lot of our work, my wife and I are both actors, and I do a lot of voice work as well. And fortunately, we've got a studio that we've built here that meant that we could, throughout this year, keep going somehow. And I've auditioned for a bunch of really nice TV and film at the moment, a few American jobs. There's some look, believe me, there's some nice content coming. It's really lovely to be part of that, even in an audition process. But so who knows? I mean, we'll see. But I imagine hopefully at some point it'll be another American gig for me somewhere along the lines. And yeah, we'll see.
I think I did see that. I want to quickly ask about, because it's been a bit of a running theme with my interviews over the last 4 or 5 years. Whenever I have someone come on the show and I look into previous projects, there's one project, if I see it on the IMDb, I am going to ask about it. I only ever ask one question about this particular project.
Okay.
When you worked on the bill, did you share any scenes with Reg Hollis, the legend that was or is?
Yes, I did.
That's amazing.
I did when they moved to 3-parters. They were big hour longs actually, and then they started to join them. So I did a big 3-parter with Andrew Paul, who played Quinnen.
Nice.
And he's a lovely guy actually. And Reg Hollis was in there a couple of times with him. But actually, we shared the studio with the Bill when I was doing Family Affairs as well. So I used to see him around the building all the time as well. So yeah, we were next door. It was like Family Affairs and the Bill. We're in this studio in South Wimbledon.
I know it's a weird question, but I always have to ask it. I mean, Reg was a legend, and it's one of those things like like I explained at the start. I'm a fan of these projects. I'm a bit of a geek, and the Bill seems to be something that for some reason it sticks up here.
Well, it was one of these things where, look, it was, it did so much for young British actors coming up. Like, everyone was in it. Like, everyone did it. And so I loved doing it, doing a 3-parter and with those guys. But what always intrigued me about Jeff Stewart's hair as Reg Hollis was it was always really slicked over, right? It was always... Now, Jeff's hair was like huge. He had a massive load of hair. So I want to know how much gel got used every day to get that hair all slicked over and form the Reg Hollis look. That's what I want to know. I'll never know. I have to find out from the makeup team.
He's a legend. He's a legend.
He's a legend. Yeah, brilliant.
You've worked with the best in the game, big and small, but you shared scenes with Reg.
exactly.
Honestly, Martin, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. When I saw Officer Down, there was no way I couldn't not speak to you. It's aside from the nostalgia kick
Yeah,
that
of
I get
course.
to have with you of the movies and the TV shows and movies in the past. Officer Down's just one of these movies that I really want people to see, and you are incredible in it. I think everybody's fantastic in this movie. You've all
Yeah.
done a wonderful job, and I just want people to pick up on it and
Thank you,
see
Kevin.
what's going on.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you talking to me today, and thanks for being so lovely. And
I'm just sorry for taking up too much of your time,
don't be
Chris.
silly. Come on. Mate,
Normally,
we're all doing sod all before Christmas.
this has been fantastic, and if I ever do get that Renford podcast on the go, you will be my first call, because yeah, we need some Renford in our
Yeah,
lives.
there might be a real market for that. There's some people that really would love to hear a bit more about it, I guess.
And again, I really want everybody to check out Officer Down. It's doing the festival rounds, so if you have a look on our social medias or anything like that,
Yeah,
you
it's in
will find it.
another hole in the head at the moment in San Francisco. In fact, till the 27th of December, you can still get it online.
But do check it out on all these different festival runs. I want people to see this because it's saying something. And a short movie nowadays that has punchy, kicky action doesn't often say something, and this one does.